Welcome back to Be Productive. When we talk about maintaining a high level of productivity, one of the things we really have to pay attention to is our adaptability. Life changes, business changes, and one of the things that changes more frequently than anything else is technology. So, how are we going to maintain our consistency in the ever changing landscape of technology and how it impacts our infrastructure? So, to help me with this conversation, I am bringing back my friend Greg Schaefer. Greg, welcome to the show.
No, I'm glad to be here, Clara. Thanks.
It's always so good to have you. You do a lot with information services and making sure that, again, we are protecting ourselves, all of our intellectual property, all of those systems. But let's get real. We fix something, we get it up to date, and then bam, technology changes again. So, how do we, as business owners and leaders, how do we stay on top of some of the latest technologies that are out there and having it work with us and also protect us?
Well, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence seems to be the buzzword of the year. And some cases it's more about marketing than not, because we've had some elements of machine learning and artificial intelligence around before. We do behavioral analytics, for example, which looks at trends to how people are logging in. Like if
Mhm.
you log into your system typically from this location to this time during the day, if suddenly you're logging in from somewhere else at a completely different time, well, it might flag that as being an issue. But what AI can do, artificial intelligence, is it can take it further, the examining of those elements, by analyzing large data sets. So just think about, just instead of just looking at login day and time and location, it can look at a whole bunch of other aspects as well too, like some of the ways that how you log in or how you type, that sort of thing. Now, some may have also heard of something called zero trust architecture. Now, zero trust is another marketing word in some ways, but it is also an architecture out there. It operates on the principle of never trust, always verify. So this requires continuous verification of users and devices. And why this is important is because, particularly post-COVID, although we were migrating towards this, we have a lot more folks that are working in hybrid environments, and we also have a lot more reliance on cloud services. And so we used to have this sort of moat and firewall type thing where all the stuff was contained in one area and we could control the security that way. Now it's so distributed. Um, we're adopting the cloud. So speaking about that, there's an older technology called cloud access security brokers. CASB is how we refer to it as, which is another methodology for logging into all those devices. It's an older technology, but it's being seen more and more again because of the prevalence of using the cloud. There's a couple
Mhm.
of other things. There's something called SOAR, that's security orchestration, automation, and response. A lot of words there. But basically, all of this is, in addition to the standard ideas that we have, the standard technologies, the VPNs that everybody's heard about, endpoint detection and response, which is in essence sort of antivirus, but the next generation. It does more. The reason why you're seeing all of this increase in technology is because the threat environment has increased substantially. We're using things differently. We're relying upon the technology more. And we're also needing to continue to put in what we call a layered defense. So the
Mhm.
more layers you have in place, the more secure your network is. So if one layer, a bad guy, a bad criminal gets through, then hopefully the next layer will catch it.
Right. Yeah, we got to have those different layers. And I know sometimes when we start logging into things, we have to do all the security questions and all of those. And it can seem like such an annoyance at the moment, but it's really there again to protect us. So we have to appreciate the different layers that are there. So I would really love to understand because with all of these different things that are out there, how do we even start to evaluate what it is that we need?
Well, we do a poor job of managing the tools we have in place. This is regardless of business size. Sometimes we have gaps in security controls that we're not aware of. Sometimes we have tools that we brought in over time that overlap, and that's certainly not efficient or productive. And so what we need to do first when we're looking to do that is that we need to inventory the tools that we have. We need to make sure that they're meeting basic security needs, that we're monitoring correctly, we're authenticating correctly, all those sorts of things. Examine the inventory. I always like to say perform a risk assessment because information security is all about risk, and see how each of those tools are performing and are they actually taking care of the gap. If you have some gaps, look into some tools that will help fill that gap. So if you don't have a monitoring system, for example, talk with vendors about looking at security information and event monitoring systems. Now, it's very important to do this assessment though, because the biggest issue I think that small and mid-sized businesses fall into is that they don't take into account the resources that are required to properly use these tools. So you'll have a tool that comes into your, whether it's something that's outsourced to a managed security service provider or brought in, you still have to be able to manage what comes from that tool, because ultimately you're still making the security risk decisions. So you have to look at each tool with a critical eye. There's no technology or black box out there that's going to make
Mhm.
your environment completely secure. And, I always like to tell people that information security is actually pretty hard work.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate what you talked about as far as to really look at the resources that you already have. Because I think so many people are just ready to jump to the new thing, and they might have something that can already work for them. It just might need to be, again, tweaked a little bit. So I think it's always
Right.
really important to assess what you have first and see if you can, work with that a little bit more. So that's great. So with the ever-changing landscape and, knowing that we get something, technology changes, the market changes, we might need more layers as we grow. What are some of the challenges that especially small to mid-sized businesses are facing in maintaining all of these systems?
The first one's the big one, is the budget. Cybersecurity can be very expensive.
Mm,
And so you have to be very sure about what it is that you're buying. So a security professional needs to be able to articulate, for example, to the C-suite, the benefit of adding tools. It's not proper to just say to the board of directors or the C-suite, "Oh, we need to bring in this tool." The security professional needs to understand, needs to be able to articulate why, how that integrates into the business. Because remember, cybersecurity is not a revenue enabler.
mm,
Rather, it's a cost of doing business. And so what this looks like, how you do that, and of course, mentioning the resources that we just talked about a moment ago, this looks different for every organization because each organization has many variables. It could be the different industry you're in, the size of the organization, your risk appetite, those sorts of things. Now,
mhm.
second, there's that resource consideration that I mentioned before. Again, just get a clear picture of what it is the operational needs for your business. And even if you're outsourcing, I cannot emphasize this enough. Even if you're outsourcing something like your monitoring, the responsibility to secure your information is still yours. Even if a third party takes care of that, you're still responsible for making sure that the information is secure. And then finally, you mentioned the word robust, and it's difficult to say that you have a robust security environment. And robust means different things to different organizations. Um, that's what we refer to as risk tolerance or risk appetite. And that's where a trusted advisor like a virtual CISO can help your organization create a cybersecurity risk tolerance strategy that aligns with your organization's risk tolerance.
Yeah. I think one of the takeaways I really want people to hone in on here is what you just said about the budgeting. So many people only want to invest money in things that are going to clearly lay out, oh, it's going to make me this much money. But we don't often pay attention to the risk averse things, the things that could cost us money down the line. This is, for lack of a better word, this is our insurance because think about the opportunity costs if the systems go down or if somebody gets through these layers of defense. What is that going to do? And I think it's sometimes really hard for people when they're looking at these to assess because it's a number that's sort of out there in fairy tale land that we can't exactly see. And what we're hoping to do is to invest in these things to save us money by not having to do these things later. Do you have a lot of these conversations with the businesses that you're working with?
Well, this kind of gets into the whole idea of like quantified risk and trying to be able to show risk, the value of bringing something in. We have tools, we have methodologies to take a risk out there and and assign a cost exposure to it. And then it's a very relatively simple process of you have that cost exposure range and you compare that with what a new tool might cost, and then it becomes simple. Well, if your cost exposure is less than what the tool costs, then don't buy the tool. If it's more, well, then it's probably worth looking into buying.
Yeah. Greg, you always bring so much value, and it's because you really know your stuff. So I know there's going to be people out there that are liking what you're saying and are going to want to learn more so that they can protect themselves and their companies. So, where's the best place for people to reach out and find you?
The best place would be to go to our website, www.vcisoservices.com. And the best way to engage us is we have a couple of ways. You can go and click on the top of the front page or the contact page. There's a button that says something along the lines of book an appointment or schedule a consultation. That'll give you 15-minute free consultation about the services that we offer. Or you can fill out the contact page with your email and all that information. Or if you want, we have a phone number there. So we do things old-fashioned as well, too. You can feel free to call us.
Love it. So much of this, for those of you that are watching, so much of this is not necessarily about the level of productivity today. It's about helping you stay in that level of productivity. Because I will tell you, I got the notification on one of the social media platforms that I was hacked. And even just to go in and do the post to say, don't accept this from me, took 5, 10 minutes. But that's on such a small scale. But what else could I have done with that 5 or 10 minutes? Now think about if that compounds hours, days, and even weeks. So make sure that you are investing in these systems, because the only way for you to stay productive is to make sure that your systems are intact and that the integrity is there. So stay tuned, because we'll be right back for more Be Productive.